All right, well, good morning. This is going to be our Basics of Biblical Greek in chapter 9. So let's say good morning, good afternoon, good night. We're recording this, so I don't know what your time frame is, but if you're Spanish, buenos dias, buenos tardes, or buenas noches. And so we want to kind of pick up from chapter 9 and Basics of Biblical Greek. We'll go through the PowerPoint, but I'm going to try to follow the book as well in order to bring in a couple things. We're going to spend our time looking at adjectives. Here's the great thing about adjectives. You really already know the form of adjectives. The article and the nouns, case endings, gender, and number uh, will align with, or the adjectives will align with the same as we see the for nouns, case, gender, and number. And now for the article, you'll see that they are actually going to follow the same case endings. And so you already know these. So basically, you're going to be building on that and strengthening that. What's going to be a little new is how these function. Now, I say a little new because they function the same as they do in English, and I believe the same in Spanish too. So we'll look at how adjectives can attribute, that is kind of to attribute something to a noun, that is kind of give a more qualifying information about the noun. We'll look at how adjectives can basically replace the noun, be substantival to become a substance, that is to become functioning either in the functioning as a noun in the nominative or the accusative or even the dative. And we'll also be looking at the predicate, how the adjective can function in the predicate predicate position, and basically associate it with the verb. Uh, so we want to look at those kind of three functions. That's probably the only really new thing, although as I mentioned, it's not new. We just don't generally spend much time with it in our English. It's just more natural to us. Um, Adjectives. I'm in chapter here. We're in chapter 9. So let me get chapter 9. Right, adjectives are really significant, and let me give you an example. We're going to look at this a little more deeper later. Our book has this on page 79, Basic Biblical Greek, with William Mount. Um, in Matthew 6, verse 13, the King James and New King James will speak to the deliver us in when the disciples asked about the Lord's Prayer, um, or about when the disciples asked about the Lord's Prayer. In Matthew 16, verse 13, Jesus, part of his response is, uh, uh, deliver us from evil. And that's how the King James or New King James translated it. But in the evil is an adjective, poneras, and but in the original language it includes the article, tu poneru, and so delivers from apo, that is the preposition you looked at last week, apo, from, away from, apo, from the evil. Um, the article does a whole lot more in of itself than we're going to kind of touch on this. You'll see it in the exegetical, or the not the exegetical, in the additional information, advanced information on page 89 of our book. It talks more about the article. I want to go through some of that. In this case, the many other translations will say from the evil one. And the significance here is, of course, that God doesn't deliver us out of evil. Oftentimes, we are still in the world. We're just not of the world. The world in itself is evil. But the request in the prayer is to deliver us out from the evil one, that is from Satan and the devil himself. And of course, he does that. So we're actually going to look at Matthew 6:13 a little later. So we'll bring that out a little more. So let's go through a couple of things here. We're going to talk about the three functions, as I mentioned, of the adjective. Can function adjectively, can function substantively, and it can function predicatively. And the adjective will agree with the word they modify. like the article does, right? The articles are really one of our best friends. It will agree with the word it's modifying, and oftentimes it helps us to quickly recognize if the word is masculine, feminine, or neuter, if the word is singular or plural, if the word is in which case it's in nominative, genitive, dative, or accusative. And so the article will do the same thing. The article has to agree with the word it's modifying. The article would be like the good book. Well, good would be, not the article, excuse me, the adjective has to agree with the word it's modifying, like the good book. Well, the good book, good is the adjective. If book is in the neuter, then good is going to have to be in the neuter so that you know it's talking about the good book versus good something else. Or the good man. Man would be in the masculine, and so book would, as the adjective, would also have to be in the masculine. Or the good woman, well, woman would be in the feminine, so the book would have, or the good would also have to be in the feminine. So whether you're talking about the good book, the good man, or the good woman, the adjective good is going to have to agree with the word that's modifying, that's giving, attributing information about. And so it has to have all three genders in order to show that agreement. The adjective modifies a noun, a pronoun, or another adjective. And that's really what it does, but it can function attributively, substantively, or predicatively. An attributive gives quality to the noun it's modifying, also referred to as the head noun. It attributes something to the head noun. Normally, for example, he studied ancient Hebrew. Well, ancient, he would be our subject, studied our verb, past tense. Ancient, of course, would now be the adjective, and he studied ancient Hebrew. It gives us information about what he studied. He studied Hebrew. Well, he didn't study modern Hebrew. He studied ancient Hebrew. So it gives us some qualifying information, attributes something about the noun it's modifying, Hebrew, and then the fact that it's ancient. So it's pretty straightforward. I don't think you really struggle with that. But the adjective can also function as the noun, substantively. We have the idiom out with the old and in with the new. Well, old and new are adjectives. And so at the out with the old or in with the new, it's functioning substantively and as the noun would. It can also function predicatively, that is, typically the to be verb. It's often stated like a me or I forget now. We'll see it when we move forward. A me or implied, it's not there at all. For example, she is young. Well, she is the pronoun for the subject. Is the stated verb, stated being verb, and it's the predicate. And young is an adjective. If you'd say young girl, that would be attributively young, describing how the girl is being young. But she is young gives us a predicating something about the subject. It's giving us more information about the subject, and so she is young. So that's what we're going to look at. And so the three functions in the attributive case. Here's the important things to recognize. This is going to become more and more important as we go. And I just noticed my Greek and the bottom number 3 is not really written in Greek. That's pretty sure that's supposed to be a me. So we'll fix that later. And the attributive, when the adjectives function attributively, it's going to agree in case, number, and gender with the noun it's modifying, that it's attributing to, that's qualifying, just like the article does. So this is nothing new. The adjective will be in agreement in the case. So if the noun it's modifying is in the nominative, then the adjective will be in the nominative, genitive, dative, or accusative, singular or plural, masculine, feminine, or neuter. So the article has a great deal of flexibility so that it can agree with whatever noun it's going to modify. It can function substantively. Then in that case, it will agree with the case, number, and gender. Um, well, excuse me, won't agree. There's nothing to agree with. I know that sounded wrong. So it will have the case number and gender and that it's functioning as. So it's functioning as the nominative. It's functioning as a subject. Uh, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Remember the movie with Clint Eastwood? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Those are adjectives: good, bad, and ugly. They're functioning in the nominative case. So good, bad, and ugly will all be in the nominative case. They're all singular and they're all masculine: good, bad, and ugly. And so they will all be in that case. And there is nothing for it to modify, which we'll go over in a minute. So hence, it will then be use the case, number, and gender of the noun it's functioning as. Notice common sense because you often add a word. So you might have just the good. Or the good what? Well, if it's in the masculine, it's probably the good man. If it's in the feminine, the good woman, whatever. If it's in the neuter, or the good it, whatever. That's not very reasonable. It can also function predicately, and when it does so, such as a me, that's supposed to be a me, not age men. My Greek apparently didn't transfer over in the PowerPoint here. Try to fix it now, but I don't want to do it that way. A me is expressed or implied. In other words, the verb may be physically present or it may not be, just implied. And so we'll actually see that as we go through the slides today. So let's talk about how to recognize the attributive. Attributive is really nothing more than the adjective is giving information about the noun it's modifying. So the adjective gives a quality to the word it modifies. Logos ha agathos, or ha agathos logos. The order does not matter. What you notice, and the most important thing, is the article is associated with the adjective, ha agathos, in both cases. Logos is the noun. It is a masculine. I'm trying to think. It's not masculine singular. The gender is masculine. The number is singular, and it's nominative case. I'm going blank. Okay, so it's in the nominative case. That's what the let me just do this. So remember, we have our stem ending with the omicron. So that kind of tells us it's in the second declension. Here's the nominative case ending. So logos is in the masculine nominative singular or nominative masculine singular. The article or the adjective must agree with it. And so it too will use the second declension stem ending with the nominative case ending for the singular masculine word. But it also has, and this is the important thing that I really want to make sure we catch, it has the article, ha-agathos. So whether the word is written or the phrase is written logos ha-agathos or ha-agathos logos, it makes no difference. It's going to be translated the same, the good word, because here the good is attributing information about logos, the word itself. The same here. Here we have the exact same thing. It's attributing information. So the word order here does not matter. What does matter is the article is associated with the adjective. So, and that tells you that it's functioning attributively. Okay, so it's called the first position. Let me clear this. This particular view is called the first position, and doesn't matter the order. It's the first position because the article is with the adjective, and there is no article with the noun it's modifying. All right. So when we move to what's called the second position, it's really the exact same thing. We're still going to get the good word, but this time there's also an article with the adjective. But notice what hasn't, I mean with the noun. But notice what hadn't changed. We still have an article with the adjective. That's the key. When there's an article with the adjective, it's either going to be first position or second position. If it's first position, there is no article with the noun it's modifying. If it's in second position, um, then there will be an article there, and that doesn't change anything with its translation. So it'll be ha lagos, ha agathos. The good word is still the same translation. The adjective is still modifying or qualifying the word. So the article and the noun with the adjectives. So when you have the article with the noun and with the adjective, it's still functioning attributively. And second position, the way I kind of remember that, first position, there's only one article first. So you notice the order itself doesn't matter. Second position, there are two articles. That kind of helps me. I don't know if that's really technically accurate, but it helps me. So the order here does matter. Well, let me think. Actually, look on page. Page 83. Yeah, the order does matter. That's what I was thinking. So the order matters. The order would be the article, noun, article, adjective, which you never have. Notice on page 83 under 9.12 between attributive and substantival. The very last sentence there, you will never find ha agathos, ha anthropos. It's they're using anthropos, ha agathos, the good man, so the good word. And so you'll never find where you have the article ha agathos, ha, we use their agos. It will never be in this order. So it won't put the adjective before the noun when they both have the article. That's the point it's making. So not a big deal, but something to just be recognizing. They can function substantively, which means the adjective can function as a noun, whether that be in the nominative or the accusative or in the other position. Generally, nominative or accusative. With it, and the adjective will function like so. We have ha agathos, estin is to be, the good. So we have the good is whatever. Say the good is good. The good is good. So ha agathos is an adjective. There it has the article, but it's also associated with, in this particular case, a to be verb, or the verb is implied if maybe not even there. If it's not there, then all you have is ha agathos, and here the adjective is again our nominative, masculine singular, and it would be now the good, normally the good man or the good person is, and this is here stated, but sometimes it's implied. So here the article's with the adjective, but there is no noun for the article to modify. It's standing alone. So context would help you identify and see that. So hence it's functioning substantive. Now the case ending will tell us how it functions in the sentence. And this case is the nominative, and so it's functioning as a subject. If it was in the accusative, uh, then it would be function as the direct object. And so it would tell you, that would help you with that. It can function predicately. There, the adjective asserts something about the subject, right? So here we have halagos, agathos. Same sentence we saw before, except now there is no article here. And so what we have is the word has the article, and that's key. The word will have the article, and the adjective will not. The halagos, agathos, is both still in the masculine singular, so is the word, and implied is the verb is estin. Yeah, estin. that's implied there. So the article with the noun, but with no article with the adjective, will be in the predicate position. And so yeah, it can seem really confusing. I'm trying to make sure I don't overly make it any harder. Look at it this way. Article can function the adjective can function three ways, right? It can modify a noun, give us information about the noun, just like in English, right? The good person, the good book, the good woman, the good man. It can function as the noun, whether functioning as the subject or the direct object, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly, out with the old and with the good. Those are adjectives functioning as a noun. So it can take the place of a noun. I say function, not necessarily take the place, but function as a noun. The article can, or the adjective, can function predicately. That is, it describes something about the subject. Um, and would be with a stative verb, the a me verb. And so she is, or he is, or God is true, those kind of things. So it functions that way. How do you recognize that? Well, if the adjective has the article, it's going to function attributively. If if there is nothing, even if the adjective has an article or not, if there's nothing for the article to modify, then it's probably functions substantively. Either as the case, gender, and number of the adjective will tell you if it's functioning as the subject or the accusative in direct object. The or can function predicately. That would be there is no article with the adjective, but there is with the noun, and so that would function predicately. Let's talk a little bit about the article itself because it becomes an important key to help recognizing it. So if there is no article with either one, now I don't know if my slides pull this out. Well, let me go through these slides and I'll go back to a couple things in the book just to make sure. I think this is on page 83, number 9.11. Anarthrous means the article is not present. I don't think we have. Yeah, we don't. Okay. The article is not present. It's just called anarthrous. Articular, the article is present. So when the adjective and the noun are both anarthrous, there is no article at all. It leaves you sort of this ambiguity. How is it functioning here? And it can be sometimes difficult. Is this functioning attributively, substantively, or is it functioning predicately? It can be generally either attributive or predicate. And so it could be the word is good, here logos agathos. There is not an article. If it was ha, logos agathos, it would be the word is good. But there is no article there. So it could still be the word is good. We're not giving that qualifying information. If it was logos ha agathos, it would be function attributively the good word, or a good word in this case, because there's no article. But here again, there is no article, so it could be either or. Context has to be the guide to understand how it's being used in that context. If no article, the context is determined whether or not it's functioning attributively or predicately. Let's talk a little bit about how to recognize. I really think I need to change the order and should have started with this, how to recognize it. This is nothing new for you. We're going to see again included here the case endings. So we have the case endings with the the stem endings with the case endings. So we have our second declension masculine, first declension feminine, second declension neuter. Did include this third declension, which we're going to do, I believe it's next week. And I included because in one of the examples we're going to have coming up is actually in a third declension form. And it's not something we've gone over, but we'll kind of just see it here in a little bit. And I wanted to have it there. So our case endings right here, we learned before, also the vocative is included. And our case endings here, case endings, case endings. and the vocative again. And so these are nothing new. You already kind of hopefully know these and familiar with them. It follows the article. It follows the same as we learned with the nouns. And adjectives are going to have that flexibility so they can. For example, we're looking at agathos. When you see agathos in the lexicon, it would be agathos. Excuse my handwriting here. Let me clean this up. Let's do it this way. And that will be its its lexical form, and you will also see this, and you'll see this. And so a noun would have, in the lexicon, would have the noun in the nominative. It will be followed by the genitive form and followed by the article, right? Well, for the adjective, because it has to be able to agree with whatever noun it's modifying in case, number, and gender, it's going to, in the lexicon, it'll be in there as the nominative, but you'll see the other feminine form and neuter form associated with it. And so we get agathos, agathe, agathon. Second, first, and second declension, masculine, feminine, neuter, agathu, agathes, agathu. Agatho, agathe, agatho, agathon, agathane, agathon. And the plural, agathoi, agathai, agatha, agathon, 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 agathois, agathais, agatois, agathus, agathos, agatha. And those are the exact same stem endings and case endings that you've already learned. So you're only applying it here in adjectives where a noun is either going to be masculine, feminine, or neuter. It's not going to be all of the above. But an adjective has to be all of the above, and that's why it's has this degree of flexibility. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Just a reminder for the article, you see that we're going to have an agreement, and the articles don't have flexibility, but you'll see they follow the adjectives will follow the same case endings as the articles for our masculine, feminine, and neuter words. All right, so how do we recognize? Let's talk about the article. If the article is present, that's called its articular. There's an article. Then it's function attributively, or it could function substantively. Although generally it has no. It's articular with the adjective, and there's no noun for it to modify. That's the difference here. Okay. If it's predicate, there's an article with the noun, but the adjective does not have the article. It's anarthros. And that's the key here to understanding it. So it follows this flow chart. For example, we're talking about the adjective. Does the adjective have an article? The answer here doesn't have an article. That's our question, right? If the answer is no, then it's either going to be predicate or it's ambiguous. We won't, the context will have to tell us. Does the head noun have the article? Well, if the answer is yes, right? So we got the noun with the article and the adjective without, then it's going to be predicate. And so predicate, it will have either the to be verb in a me form or another a me type verb that will be present or be implied. And so, and then you will basically, translation will be the noun is whatever the adjective. God is good. God is true. That kind of thing. If there is no, the noun does not have an article, so neither the adjective nor the noun has an article. Now it's more ambiguous, and the context has to determine. If the noun, does the adjective have an article? Yes, it does. Well, then it's going to function attributively or substantively, one of the two. If is there a noun that it can modify? Well, no, there is no noun that can modify. Yes, the adjective has an article, but there's no noun for it to modify, so it's functions substantively, and so it's functioning as an implied noun. And so it'd be like the good, the bad, and the ugly. Oftentimes you need to add a helping word. It might just be the good. The good what? Well, if it's in the masculine form, you might say the good man. If it's in the feminine form, you might say the good woman. You might have to add a helping word. If it's in the neuter form, you might say the good it or whatever the neuter might be. The context will determine. So if there is a noun, so if the article, if the adjective has an article, yes, it can be attributive or substantival. If there is a noun, no noun for it to modify, then it's going to be functioning substantively. If there is a noun, then it's functioning attributively. So now, regardless if the noun has an article or not, but the article has it. So there's a noun, whether it has an article or not is inconsequential. But there is an adjective with an article, then it's functioning attributively. It's giving us quality information, attributing something about the noun it's modifying. And it can be in various orders. I want to kind of highlight the orders. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So this is really sort of a summary chart, but this is really looking, and in some ways I like page 83 kind of brings it out. So let's see if we can walk through this and look at page 83 at the same time. So in the attributive position, I got to note number one, and attributive, it gives a quality or it gives an attribute to the word it's modifying. The adjective would be articular. That means it has an article. It should be more real. Here we go. It has an article, and the noun may be articular, having an article, or anarthrous, not having an article. So it could be either one. And so when we see what's called the first position, attributive first position, there's an article with the adjective, and in this case, there's no article with the noun. So ha, agathos, article with the adjective, and no article with the noun. Ha, agathos, anthropos. And so it is the good man. We have good being the adjective, attributing something about man. It can also be an attributive position, what's called the second position, where there's an article with the noun and an article with the adjective. Now, let me back up. In the first position, it can be the article adjective and then the noun, or reverse. It could be the noun without the article, or anarthrous, and then the article adjective. The order doesn't matter. That's still first position. There's only one article right here, and it's with the adjective. Whether it's ha agathos or anthropos or anthropos ha agathos, it's still first position, and it's still the good man. Second position, there would be an article with the noun and the adjective, but it will always be the article noun first before the article adjective. So ha anthropos, ha agathos. However, the translation is still the same, the good man. It doesn't matter. It is still functioning attributively because there's an article with the adjective. It doesn't really matter if the noun it's modifying, its head noun, has an article or not. It's still attributing something to that noun, and it's the good man. There's a third position for attributive, and I think the book has that later on because it has it later on because I can't remember. I don't believe there's any New Testament usages or examples of a third position. I don't believe, or if there are, they're very few or very rare. So let me see where page that is. I don't see the page. I don't see it in my here. Two article preposition. Might be in the vocabulary, that's for sure. Oh, yeah, okay, it's in the advanced information, page 89, 9.20, the third attributive position. There's a third attributive position, anthropos ha agathos, right? So again, the article is with the adjective. Article is with the adjective, and the noun does not have an article. But the order is noun, article, adjective, and it's still the good man. I didn't change our translation. But there is no article with the noun, but it's still an article with the adjective, and we still get the good man. Third attributive position. I don't believe there are any in the book or in the New Testament. Our book doesn't tell us. No note here. Commonly, it says the modifier rarely will be adjective. an adjective, but more commonly would be a phrase. I'm not sure what he's really trying to get at there, but I'm spending time with that. All right, so that's the attributive position for the adjective. Now, we said it can function. I'm going to do the substantival for next. Number 3, substantival would be in the nominative, the accusative, the genitive, or dative case. In other words, the adjective is going to be one of those cases, and that case determines its function because there is no article, just like any other noun, right? There is no article for it to modify, so it will stand for the whatever stand for the in the nominative, the genitive, the dative, or the accusative, subject, possessive, indirect, or direct object. It will stand for whatever its form is, masculine, singular, or its case, number, and gender, just like any other noun would. But there's no noun to modify. Context will determine its function. All right, now the predicate position, note number 2. Predicate asserts something about the subject and verb to be. It's either stated or implied. In other words, the a me verb may or may not be there, the to be verb. But the noun is articular. That means the noun has the article. Here we go. The adjective is anarthrous. It does not have the article. That's the real difference. Right here, no article. There's an article. There's the article. There's the article with the adjective. It's functioning attributively. No article. Right here for the adjective. It's functioning, but there is an article. That's the other key. There is an article for the noun. So if you have both of those, right? Article for the noun, no article for the adjective, it's probably function attributively. So same words, agathos, ha anthropos. The man now is good. It's implied. The verb is implied. Ha anthropos, agathos. See, the word order doesn't matter. The man is good. All right, that's the part that probably is going to be new. It's not truly new, but it's not something we typically spend time with. But that's how we begin to recognize that. Let's do a little bit of practice here. Hebrews 13, verse 20. Now the God of peace, the one who raised up from out of the dead, then ton poimena, ton probabaton, ton megon. Let's look at a couple of by the blood of the eternal covenant, our Lord Jesus. All right. So in the middle of this English is this Greek text with an adjective, and this adjective has an article. Well, that should tell you something automatically. Megon from megos. It has an article, and it's going to agree with the word it's modifying. Well, the question is it modifying with the sheep? In this case, this is in the genitive, plural, the sheeps, or is it modifying ton poimena? Ton poimena. The article is going to be our best friend. It's going to tell us very quickly and very easily that we're talking about the great Ton Megon, the great shepherd of sheep. And so this is in the accusative. You don't recognize it automatically. You should recognize this. Could be accusative. It also could be nominative. And could be masculine, and it could be in of itself. It could be masculine, or it could be neuter. In this case, the word here, poimena, is in the accusative. I know that. This is one of those third declensions where the stem ends in a consonant. And if we go back to our, this is one reason I have this here. You haven't done this yet, but we look at the accusative singular. See, there's an omicron new ending. And here can be for our article. That's the article, right? Accusative singular, neuter, accusative nominative, neuter. It's got to be one of those three, right? It turns out that our word has a in this case a consonant in stem ending and ends in the alpha, so it's accusative singular masculine feminine word. We'll get to that later. So clear this up. It's a mess. I always do that. Sorry about it. All right. So ton megon has to modify ton poimena. So it is now the God of peace, the one who raised up from out of the dead, the great. So it's giving us an apposition, information about who is the one raised up from out of the dead. It's the great shepherd of sheep. And how is he raised up? By the blood of the eternal covenant, our Lord Jesus, telling us now who is the great shepherd of sheep. It's our Lord Jesus. And that's how it functions attributively. So hopefully that kind of gives you some context. All right, substantive. Well, here we have Matthew 6:13, the Lord's Prayer, it's sometimes called. We know John 17:17 is probably more appropriate for, or John 17, more appropriate for the Lord's Prayer. When the disciples ask, teach us to pray. And so Matthew 6:13, and do not lead us into temptation, but here's our rough breathing, frusai, hemas, apotu poneru. All right, let's do a couple of things. One thing I want you to get in the habit of is marking off the clauses or phrases so you can easily identify the verbs and the subject versus the direct object and such. Apo was the article or preposition you learned last week, and it refers to from, and actually more like away from. It shows motion, so it'll be more like away from. Apo to poneu. Okay, so do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us. Here's the us. Deliver us. This is deliver. Deliver us from, away from evil, as the King James or the New King James. And I think there's some other versions that do that as well, so I'm not picking on them. Deliver us from evil, it says. Or, as other translations, from the evil one. Well, because the article is here, then it's from the evil, and so it's typical, often would be the evil one. And so most modern translations will have the evil one. I believe it's more accurate. That's theologically more accurate because God doesn't deliver us from evil. We're in the world, as we mentioned beginning at the top of this lesson. We're not of the world, but we're in it. So we're still in evil. Evil still surrounds us. We're still subjected to evil. But he will deliver us from the evil. He does deliver us from the evil one, those that are in Christ. We need not fear the evil one, the devil or Satan, however you want to define that. But we can see here it's functioning now. This is substantively. Remember, we said if the article, not the article, if the adjective has an article, let's see if I got this right. Hold on. There's our prepositional phrase. From evil, the evil, literally. And here's our adjective, evil. It does have the article, but there's nothing for it to modify. That's the key. So if there's nothing for it to modify, it's functioning substantively. And so typically it's not just delivers from evil, it delivers from the evil one. Because evil is going to function as in this case, the object of the preposition, the evil one. Hopefully that makes sense. That's the difference there, and I think it's pretty significant. In Matthew 13, verse 17, also again substantively, for truly I say to you that paloi prophetai kai dikaioi. Paloi prophetai kai dikaioi, desire to see what you see and did not see it. So many, and there you should be able to recognize, there's our nominative plural ending, prophetai from prophets, prophetes, tai. There's our nominative plural ending in the feminine, kai, and you should know that one by heart. Dikaioi, look at that, nominative plural ending, masculine nominative plural ending. So it's going to function. Here's our, this means just or righteous. G-H-T-O-U-S, righteous or just. But there's nothing for it to modify. So many prophets and righteous ones or just ones desire to see what you see and do not see it. So it's functioned substantively because there's nothing for it to modify. Paloi is an adjective. It's not going to be righteous many. Anyway, we'll get into that later. It can function predicatively. Matthew 5, verse 9. Here, remember Matthew 5, the Beatitudes, right? Makarioi, there's our nominative single plural subject, blessed. Hoi, ere, it's going to be ere, napoioi. Again, we have the same ending here, nominative, plural, masculine. And this is our adjective. Actually, they're both adjectives, so it's not the best example. They're both adjectives. This is more functioning like it would as a noun, but hoi aneroinopoioi. This is the peacemakers. You might remember arene, peace, and this is the peacemakers. It's an adjective. Makers, because it's plural. And there is no verb. I'll clean it up a little bit. There is no verb. Blessed peacemakers. Well, it's blessed are, it's implied, the peacemakers. Okay, so it's functioned predicately. Again, it's a bad example because I forget it's renapoioi is an adjective. Makrio is also an adjective, but similar to it being a noun. Here, the article is with the. It's a bad example. Let's just say it's a noun. It's not. Then the article's with the noun and not with the adjective. That makes it very simple. In this case, it's a bad example. There's reason for this that I don't remember. But anyway, the blessed are the peacemakers. A little better example, on John 3:33, ha theos, right? You should recognize that. That's the article, singular masculine. There's our case ending or connecting vowel, the omicron, or sigma for the case ending for the nominative singular masculine word, ha theos. Alethes, estin. Estin is from the ame verb. It is, or, from the ame to be. Estin is. Alethes, there's a feminine genitive. Yeah, alethes. Genitive. Hold on a minute. Let me go back and look at something. Using a plural, excuse me, not genitive. Yeah, and I should have known that because genitive would have been here. The plural is going to be there in the nominative. So God is truth. Truth being Truth, and all truth is plural, right? Oh no, that's the. It is not that. Let's go back. What am I looking at? Let's make sure I got that. It is the genitive. Let me look at the text and see if I got it right. It doesn't sound right. What passage are we doing? John 3:33. 3:33. Like face. Adjective nominative singular masculine. Like face. Nominative singular masculine. Oh, because where's it at? Yeah, that's why. Okay, this is where it gets fun because it's a third declension word and its stem ending is with the theta. alethes, and that's why. So it is a accusative. No, it's what's the nominative singular? Sigma. Okay, sigma ending. Alethes. A feminine to the letter prior to the is a row or a vowel. The stem ending. This is just for the feminine stuff here. Alethes. It is a nominative singular. What am I missing here? Let's work this out together. Okay, clean this up so I can. Okay, all right. Let me look at the word itself. Alethes. Hold on a minute. That's what 33. Alethes. Okay, so this word happens to be, and that is the nominative singular, and it's an adjective, and it's that is a lexical nominative singular form, and its genitive is epsilon sigma, and those are the only two forms. It's what's called a 2+2, and that's why I'm struggling with that. Okay, that is the nominative singular. So that's sometimes you just got to look things up. But here's the point. Okay, nominative singular, nominative singular. Um, this is the adjective. There is no article with it. There is an article with the noun. We happen to have the verb. The verb is not applied, and so we have God is truth. John 3:33. All truth, really. Well, truth, and that covers that. Let's bring out a couple things in the book. How much time? What time is it? Let me see. Oh yeah, we're okay. I want to bring out a couple things in the book that's not on the slides before we get to vocabulary. All right, so we covered that. We covered that. Covered that. Okay. Article and a prepositional phrase on page 84, number 9.15. Under the odds and ends section. So oftentimes you'll find the article that is prior to or is preceding the prepositional phrase. And that article oftentimes has significant function. It can do several things, but most times it's going to function, help you to recognize. You won't translate the article per se. It can make the prepositional phrase function as an adverbial, as a relative clause. For example, on here Matthew 2:16, tous paidos tous in Bethlehem, Bethlehem. So the children, tous paidos, and then you have another article, tous, in the prepositional phrase and word phrase with Bethlehem from Matthew 2:16. Well, in Bethlehem is the prepositional phrase, but it's preceded by the article tous, and it's the same article as tous paidos. So it's telling us that the children, tous paidos, is giving us more information about qualifying the children. The children in a relative clause. A relative clause would be like who are in Bethlehem. The children who are in Bethlehem, not the children over there, but the one who are in Bethlehem. That's a relative clause. The ones who are in Bethlehem. Other times, an article prior to a prepositional phrase can make the entire prepositional phrase function as the substantive. In other words, maybe the direct object, or even the nominative, the subject. A lot of times it would be pretty clear. For example, in the book, Elelasan, ton agathon tu kario pasin tois in te oikia. So here we have our prepositional phrase at the very end of that, and te oikia, There's mark out the preposition phrase, and it's preceded by this article, toys. Notice that's the dative plural article. And so they spoke, Elelesan, what they speak, the word, tan lagan, of the Lord to Kuryu, all pasan, or to all, because it's in the dative. So it's not just they spoke all the word, they spoke the word to all. Well, to all of who? What are you talking about? To all the ones who were in the house. That article gives us this qualifier, and the prepositional phrase now is functioning as the indirect object. So who do you speak to? All of the ones who are in the house, not the ones outside the house, but the ones in the house. And so the article does a whole lot more than say the. And I mentioned 9.16, a 2-2 adjective. There are some adjectives that it's going to follow instead of a 2-1-2 pattern. Remember declensions: masculine, feminine, neuter, 2-1-2, second declension, first declension, second declension. They'll follow a 2-2 pattern. There's no so in other words, the masculine and the feminine will be the same, the second declension pattern, and the neuter will also follow a second declension pattern. You'll have to kind of walk through some examples and see that. 9.17 talks about neuter plural subject. This is another important thing, and we're moving more into more syntax than we are grammar, because now we're talking about theology and translations here. Neuter plural subjects. Greek normally uses a singular verb, just like English does, when the subject is singular, but it also can use a singular verb when the subject is neuter plural. That when it does that, the writer is viewing the plural subject not as a collection of items, but as a single group, an entity. For another, but in proper English, we'll use a plural verb. So we don't use a singular verb. We will translate the plural verb. For example, in 1 John 4 and verse 1, dakimatsete, that's a imperative to test, ta pneumata, the spirits, a ektu theu estin. The ektu theu is the prepositional phrase, mark that off. And a is the conditional clause if, so we have this clause of the prepositional phrase. So test the spirits if they are from God. And so the they are is actually the verb is estin, it's singular. But it's associated with a plural command to test the spirits, plural. And then a is if they are from God. So it's not if they is from God, but if they are. A is the plural. A is if. They are is the from the estin. Okay, estin is singular, but we're going to translate it plural. But because it's a neuter, pneumata, plural subject, it uses a singular verb. The spirits is from God, but it's really the spirit are from God. That's how we translate it. But they'll use a singular verb to show that all the spirits are not the spirits are not a collective of different spirits, but they grouping them all the spirits. You test all the spirits to see if they're from God. Okay, I'm sure I really confused you on that. 9.18, I've mentioned this multiple times. It makes sense to start dividing your sentences up into clauses or phrases and begin to recognize the subject, the direct object, and the verb. Normally, I would put a double underline to the verb. I might put a single underline under the subject and do something else with the direct object. It's just to help begin to recognize it. But I would put a parentheses around prepositional phrases and maybe brackets around certain clauses, if-then clauses or other clauses, relative clauses, who, the children, the ones who are in the house, kind of thing. Skip vocabulary for a minute. I want to go to the advanced information. In 9.19 on page 89, genitive or accusative. This is what is in the note here. Here, let me clear this up so you can see it. Okay, this note here in the bottom. If it's a feminine singular adjective, if the letter prior to the stem, okay, in other words, stem ending, is a rho or a vowel, the stem ending is an alpha, for example, nekra, right? So if any other alphabet letter than a rho or a vowel, then the stem ends with an eta. And so it's either going to be an alpha or an eta, right? So nekra, here the stem endings with rho, and so it's going to be nekra. If it had been nekna, then it would have had this eta ending with it. That's what that's saying. So that creates a little bit of problem, confusion when we're talking about genitive singular versus the accusative singular and plural. So notice what it says. If the next to the last letter in the stem is an adjective, is a rho or a vowel, the feminine stem ends in alpha. That's what we talked about right here. Okay, such as nekra. And the ending alpha sigma can indicate either a genitive singular or a accusative plural. And so you have that ambiguity there. And so you see that. And just to show you, if you take the word agathes, or agathos, right? Let's say agathes. Agathes, here the stem ending, preceding the stem ending, eta is the stem ending, right? Preceding it is not a vowel, and it's not the rho, and so that's why there's an eta here. And so agathes is going to be clearly genitive singular, and you don't have the confusion with the accusative plural with it. And so that's what that's trying to bring out. If, continuing on, if the next to last letter in the stem of the letter is anything other than a rho or vowel, such as agathe, the feminine stems in an eta, that's what we have here, and the ending omicron sigma can clearly be an accusative kind of thing. The final stem vowel in the plural will always be an eta for feminine, eta, 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 or it's evocative. For feminine, I think, obviously that's not. So nekros can be genitive. So here's the question: can nekros can nekros? Here's our eta sigma. Can it be genitive singular? All right. Well, the stem ending is with the alpha, and that's because it has the letter preceding is a rho, right? So a rho or a vowel is going to have the alpha right there. So yes, the genitive singular can be omicron singular, or omicron singular can be genitive singular or accusative plural. So the answer to the question is, can nekros be genitive singular? Yes, it can be. That's all that's trying to bring out, okay, to highlight that. We mentioned third attributive position already in 9.20. And then I want to talk a little bit about this article, the exegesis, because I want to move beyond just grammar into more syntax. The article, as we mentioned early on, doesn't just mean the, or may not even mean the at all. It's a definitive article. Greek doesn't have a indefinitive. Doesn't have a. So for us to refer to it as a definitive article is a little bit misleading in that it's not definitive or indefinitive. It's just the article, and the article can function as a definitive, the, or can function some other way. And so this kind of goes through it. So number one on page 89 under exegesis, the article says it's quite complex, and it can be, can function as the article, the disciples, right? Pretty straightforward. Number two, the ha can function as a grammatical marker. That's important. For example, It shows the following words and modifies. So look at the example here with the holy angels. Meta with ton agathon. There's a genitive plural, the angels. Ton agion. There's the holy. So you would see this like the holy ones or the angels. Which angels? The holy ones, not the unholy ones, right? And so it'd be with the holy angels, or actually the literal translations with the angels, the holy ones, and you can smooth that over by saying with the holy angels. So it can function as a marker to show that the here ton agion, the holy ones, modify that's preceding what precedes it. That is the angels. Um, it's in the genitive because meta. This is a prepositional phrase. Meta is with, and so the whole thing's in the genitive. Uh, And that's why. Number three, Greek uses ha when the English does not. Okay, proper names, for example, ha Jesus. Well, we don't say the Jesus. We say Jesus answering said to him. Also, the same is true for theos. Uh, Tu theou, for example, is the son of God. It's not the son of the God. We don't translate it with the in all cases. In all times. Number four, sometimes ha functions with the participle. We haven't got to participles yet. Participles can function just like adjectives can, and they often function to modify the verb and function it verbally. But when an article is associated with it, it can make it with it or an adjective to make it function like a noun, even when there's words in between it. In other words, it's going to function just like we talked about here a few minutes ago, where the adjective can function with the article as a, or excuse me, the article functioning with a prepositional phrase can make the prepositional phrase function as a relative clause. The good people who are in the house, relative clause. The children, which are, you know, wearing diapers. So a relative clause in that sense. Number five, other times Greek does not use ha when English requires it, right? So NRK in the beginning, hey halagos. NRK doesn't say in the beginning, it says in beginning. It's a prepositional phrase, NRK. We have to add the definitive clause in the beginning. It's not referring to in a beginning. It's referring to in the beginning, and so we would add the definitive article with that. Number six, ha can function as a personal, possessive, or relative pronoun. And we're going to do pronouns here in a couple of weeks, and we'll see that they can function as a pronoun. Pronouns he, she, it, they, them, and so a relative pronoun would be or personal, possessive, or relative. We'll get to the difference later. Example is, and they said to him. Notice the hoi on number six is a nominative plural, and it's and here's the article functioning as a pronoun they. We'll go through the rest of those. Number seven, and the one ha governs two nouns. So when one article can govern two nouns, for example, and look at the end of Titus 2:13, tu megalu theukai soteros hemon Iesu Christou. That is the great God and Savior, our great God and our Savior, Jesus Christ. It's all in the genitive, including the article. The article is governing both the great God and our Savior, Jesus Christ. And so there's more theological significance behind that. But for now, just recognize that the article can govern, single article can govern two nouns, as in this case. So I want to highlight those. Let's go through vocabulary, and we'll close this out. Agathos, and notice here that it is an adjective. I know automatically it's an adjective because I have my masculine nominative case ending, my feminine nominative case ending, and my neuter nominative case ending. I do not have the article here. If it was a noun, it would give us the genitive option and the article associated with it. Article. It would give us the article associated with it, whether it be masculine, feminine, or neuter. But that's not here. Instead, we have agathos, agathe, agathon. Masculine, agathos; feminine, agathe; agathon, neuter. All right. Agapetos, and that of course means good, right? We remember that. So good is an adjective, needs to be agree with the noun it's modifying, so you have a lot of flexibility there. Same with agapetos, beloved. Beloved. Agapetos, agapete, agapeton, right? Masculine, feminine, and neuter. Ionios. Now here's our 2-2 kind of thing. There's agathos and ionios and ionion. So both second declension patterns. That's the point. But this could be masculine or feminine, and this would be the neuter. And so we would use this second declension pattern even for the feminine when it's referring to an. I don't think there is an eternal. This means eternal. I don't think there is a feminine eternality. That's probably why it's just the masculine here. I'm not real sure. Alelon, there's our. Matter of fact, if you look in the book brings out something with this particular word. Okay, page 86, alone, meaning one another. And what it says, it's an unusual word because it never occurs in the nominative or in the singular. It's always in the plural. Its lexical form, therefore, is the genitive plural. So that's how it shows up in the lexicon. And it refers to one another. It's used 100 times. There's a note number 10 associated with parallel lines. Paralelos are lines that are besides para, one another, elos. So there's a compound word. Gives us neat information about it. Apakrite means he, she, or it answered. And you see that on top of page 87. There's a note here as well. This is common form of this is a common form of a common verb. It occurs 82 times in the New Testament. It takes its direct object in the dative, and therefore you do not use the key word with its direct object. In other words, to give the example, pakarete auto doesn't mean he answered to him, but it means he answered him. Its direct object will still be, it takes the direct object in the dative, but it's not functioning as an indirect object. He, she, or it answered him, or answered. Doulos, ha. So here is not an adjective, it is a noun. It's in the nominative case, that's the lexical form. There's our second declension case ending, and there's our genitive form. Doulos, delu, would be the genitive form, and there's our article. So this word is a masculine word, and in its genitive form would be with the omicron, our case ending, upsilon ending. There's our case ending. That's our stem ending or connecting vowel, and there's the article associated with it. So, doulos. Doulos means slave. It does not mean servant. And there's a great video that one day we'll play, probably when we do another class. I know which class it is, on using Greek and Hebrew in ministry. There's a great video on the ESV committee actually discussing this word, and the point being is the translation, and because there's a negative connotation with the word slave, especially in American history, so they translate ESV as bond servant, but other translations will say servant. Well, there's a different word for servant that normally means a paid servant. Doulos is not one who's paid. So that's really, and that's my pet peeve. I think it's inappropriate to translate it as servant. A bond servant would be appropriate, We don't like to use slave a lot of times because it's our 21st century mind goes to a negative connotation. Slave was not negative in that first century in all cases. Many people hired themselves out as slaves in order to pay off debts or these kind of things. So anyway, next word is on. On is means if or when. It's a normally a dependent. It leads a dependent clause. On is really it's called a crisis from a and on. And typically, when they come together, we get on, and ultimately, it's oftentimes when on is with a say um, a relative pronoun, has, then often we'll just say like whoever or whenever, depending upon what relative pronoun is being used. And so oftentimes this will get changed. This means if or when, but sometimes when it's associated with a relative pronoun, then it'd be whoever versus whenever, kind of thing. So, emos, eme, emon, amon. This is really the me or my, and this is more the emphatic view. My or me, more or my or mine. So the next word is untale, untales, untales. So there's our a feminine. This is our stem ending, right? There is no case ending for the genitive form, stem ending with the case ending for the genitive and the first declension. And there's the article. So antale is a feminine word. Anyway, that's it. So it means commandment. Katos, as, even, or as, or even as. Kako, or kakos, kakes, again, a feminine word. Know that automatically. Here's our kakos, case, our genitive form. And so it is, right, this is an error. Yeah, I knew something didn't look right because why have I got a second declension omicron here with this genitive first declension and a feminine word here? This is wrong. Okay, so let's fix that really quick up here. Let's fix that. And what this is this is kakos, and this should not be a, instead, this is a or on, which makes this an adjective. Kakos means bad or evil. An adjective that can be in the masculine, nominative, or other forms, in the feminine, or in the neuter. Again, so it can modify any word. So I'll have to fix that. Mu, meaning my, or emu, which we saw earlier. Well, that would be the genitive form, sorry. Emu, the emphatic form of that. So my, this is the genitive singular of ego, I am. And then nekra, which we're going to get into this in chapter 11. So nekros, masculine singular. There's our feminine singular. There's our neuter singular. It's an adjective meaning dead or dead bodies or the dead ones, right? So if it's function substantively, it might be the dead ones, the dead bodies. Okay, and then pistos, again, our adjective form, and the masculine, the feminine, and the neuter. Pistos, piste, piston, the faithful ones, the faithful one, or plural will be faithful ones. Faithful or believing one, believing ones. Poneros, there's our evil or bad. Yes, there's poneros, that means evil or bad, and there's also kakos, meaning bad or evil. Typically, the word order here is that typically means bad more often than it means evil. Here, poneros typically means evil more often than it means bad, but they both mean evil or bad or evil. And protos, adjective, masculine, singular, feminine, and neuter. Protos, prote, proton, first, right? Or earlier. Yeah, earlier. All right, and then tritos, again, masculine, feminine, neuter. Tritos, trite, triton, and it means third. Okay, and there we have it. That's our lesson. We're not going to go through all this. Normally, if we had time, we would use this. Maybe something good for, we'd start doing translations. Something good if the guys on Friday want to use. They certainly could do that. All right, brother. That's it. Hopefully that helps you. I'm not sure how long I went. Let me stop share here. Stop sharing. Okay. I don't really know how long I went. I don't know what time I started. I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to leave here in a minute anyway, so that works out. So hopefully I didn't make it too convoluted, too confusing. Hopefully it makes sense. If not, then I know Andres and Damien will fix everything I messed up. All right. Appreciate you, brother, and we'll talk to you soon. Stop recording. Thanks.